Welcome to The Sober Unicorn. We are a gay-hosted, all-inclusive podcast about sobriety and addiction recovery for the LGBT plus community and all of our allies. I am your host, Holden, and thank you for joining us today. Hey, it's Holden, and I am an alcoholic. I hope everyone is doing well today. Today, I am being joined by Andy. They are a queer artist, and I'm so happy to have them on the show. Hey, Andy.
Hi, guys.
How are you doing today?
I am super well and super excited to be joining you on this podcast because you're a dear friend and I have been looking forward to it.
Awesome. Well, why don't you tell everybody your sobriety date and what your drug of choice was?
So, again, my name is Andy. I'm 36 years old. My sobriety date is 9/22 of 2021. And I was a junkie in the truest bros sense of the word. 25-year heroin addict and really everything else under the sun.
Yeah. So I'm super happy you're joining us today. I know that you are a part of a 12-step program like I am. Mm-hmm. And I know that no matter how many times you work the steps or how long you maintain sobriety, going back to the basics is one of the most important ways to remember why you got sober. Could you elaborate on going back to the basics?
Absolutely. So we have a lot of popular axioms in 12-step programs in general, and especially Alcoholics Anonymous. And we say this is a simple program. It's not an easy one. And for me, as someone whose mind overcomplicates everything in life, simplicity is what I need. I like to live very minimally. It's just that my mind works against me. And so I really do my best to observe the basics of what I'm taught, right? And those are very simple. When you're fresh to the program, you come in, you sit down, you shut your mouth, and you listen, right? Because that's the way you absorb information. You do what you're told. And what you'll be told to do is really not too hard. You make your 90 meetings in 90 days. That's a meeting a day, and I made more than that. You work your steps with a sponsor, which you have to find, right? That shows a desire to be in the program and a desire to achieve your sobriety and maintain it. And then you just really listen. I can't stress that enough. Listening is the most vital part of the program because we didn't come to do anything else other than change ourselves. And we can't change ourselves by doing what we always used to do. And for me, that was doing everything myself, taking life by the horns, and thinking I had all the answers, which I didn't.
So yeah, I know when I first kind of stepped into the room, I was like, I got something to say. And I would constantly talk about my problems and why I needed to get sober. And until somebody took me aside and was like, dude, we all had our problems. We all have a reason to get sober. Nobody gives a shit about your problems. It's about the solution on how to get sober and maintain the sobriety, not so much the final rock bottom that got you here.
Well, we're intelligent people, right? We didn't get as far as we did by being dummies. Myself, I'm a voracious reader. I like to think that I'm very good at the things I choose to spend my time on. I was a very good junkie as well, right? Everything I do in life, I tried very hard to do my best at. And that was kind of the problem, is that I was trying to do so many things. Now I just do them. And that's kind of part of the basics that we're talking about. I've minimalized my thought process down to being completely present in the moment, right? Living a very Zen-like spiritual life, where I no longer have all these stresses and worries and anxieties that used to plague me. And I'm able to kind of fall back on the basics of the program, right? The steps, which are a guideline for everything in my life. They address all the problems that I have, gratefully inside the program and out.
Mm-hmm. So I know, of course, the main three basics of any 12-step program is going to be, of course, step one, admitting that everything was powerless and your life was unmanageable. So take me to that point for you when you finally came to that conclusion.
Okay, so I went to a rehab when I was 21, right? I was young. I was horribly addicted to heroin. and I was miserable. And in that program, you know, I still thought I knew it all, and I still had a lot of energy. I still had a lot of positive outlook on life and the possibilities that I could maintain with it. But I wasn't ready yet, right? I knew that I was going to use again, and I knew it was only a matter of time because I hadn't really given up. I hadn't ever admitted I was powerless. That's a foreign concept to me. I want power in my life. You know, I desire it because I think it gets me what I want. And because of that, you know, I listened and I passed it through the filter of my mind, and I made judgment calls on everything that I was told. And then I started working my own program, right? And my own program led me to relapse very quickly. This time when I came into the program, 25 years later, I had been beaten down so badly by my addiction and alcoholism, my lifestyle choices. I'd lost so much from everything that I had done, right? And I could only put blame on myself. What everybody else had done in my life, the traumas that I'd experienced as a child, all these things in the end are pointless, because there comes a time in all of our lives we have to assume the mantle of responsibility for our own actions. And I was well past that point. So when I was in the program this time, the very first day, I had, in a very typical rock bottom fashion, lost everything. I'd lost my partner, I'd lost my place to live, I'd lost my job, I'd lost my position in my community, all of the things that I'd worked so hard for. And I do a lot of organization work, I do a lot of activism work, I dabbled in politics, right? You know, I'm an artist, I'm a musician, and anything involved in creativity and the expression of creativity is kind of like my corner. All gone, right? All gone, all of it. And I was so depressed, so low, that I was at the point of suicide. And facing suicide, and, you know, having faced it many times over the course of my life, I knew that, you know, I didn't really want to do it. Otherwise I would have, right? I wanted to live, I was just miserable. So I knew what to do because I'd already been told it 25 years earlier. You sit down, you shut up, and you listen, and you do what you're told. And if it took me 25 years to get there, it did, right? So I came in the program, I read the first step. It said I admitted that I was powerless. My life had become unmanageable. That was true. And because it was true, it resonated with me. And because it resonated with me, I was able to accept it. So I got to work. And when I got to work, I saw immediate, and I do mean immediate, practical results.
So that we finally admitted that you were powerless, and how did you translate that? Of course, step 2 is understanding that there is something greater than we are, out there. So did you have trouble with that? Was there any prejudice against religion, or was that a pretty easy concept?
Oh, not at all. No. You know, my background's in philosophy, right? Comparative religions, you know, epistemology. I had studied every religion in the world extensively, right? I had personally gone on a journey of self-discovery many times in my life, right? Like existential crisis after existential crisis. For me, the concept of God was the loser's way out. Like, why would I need anyone else's power other than my own, right? I want to achieve things on my own. I want them to be my successes and my victories because I worked so hard for them. And, you know, what that discounts is how many times in my life I haven't been able to account for all of the what could be called crazy coincidences that occurred to me. You know, the times I didn't die in that car wreck, right? The times I didn't die to that overdose, right? The times that, you know, I just woke up in the hospital and was able to walk out without any injuries. And those things all happened to me, right? Like, when I say that my story was your typical story of self-abuse, self-destruction, and the perpetuation of killing myself, I was the epitome of that, you know. I had seen things, and I knew that there are no such things as coincidences, and nothing is impossible, only highly improbable. And having had those spiritual experiences throughout my life, you know, I knew that there is something else, right? There is this power that is greater than myself, and I hope that there is something greater than myself because I'm not able to do everything. And having admitted that, right, having simply came to the possibility of belief, I was able to move forward and start accessing something that was bigger than me. And by accessing something that was bigger than me, all of a sudden, this burden just was relieved from my shoulders. You know, I didn't have to carry it myself anymore.
Yeah, I know that as alcoholics and addicts, many of us feel that we are in such control of ourselves and our addiction, and we feel that at the time that when we overdosed and didn't die, we felt, oh, it's because we knew how much to put into our bodies to that point. So was finally giving your higher power that control a weight off your shoulders?
Absolutely. I mean, 100%. I've been looking for that my whole life. You know, I considered it the weak thing to do, right? I was a very rigidly controlled individual despite being so chaotic. If you looked at my life, you would see that I was very habitual about everything I did, especially my own self-destruction. I made it a habit. And finally saying that, okay, maybe there is this destiny out there for me. You know, maybe all these things do mean something rather than not meaning anything. And I'd explored nihilism to its core and knew that by staring into the abyss, all it did was create it inside me. You know, I needed a way out of that darkness. And when you see the light, you can't ignore it.
Yeah, excuse me. And it's so good, of course, with the 12 steps, we get to create our own conception of who our God is. I mean, I know at least for me, I use the term God because it's just an easier generic term. It's not the Christian God, it's not a Hindu God, it's my God as I conceive him. So how do you keep your constant connection with your higher power as you understand him, and how do you keep that relationship going?
You made a good point. The simple addendum that, as you understand it, allowed for so many of us to find this solution. Because if that simple line wasn't there, I wouldn't have been able to find it, right? Whether you call God God, Allah, Ahura Mazda, the spirit of the universe, Terra, right, the creator, I believe all these things are the same. There is a power out there that's greater than myself, and I believe that it's love, this infinite love, which is truth, right? Which is itself all these kind of divine qualities that we strive for in life. And it's what I was always looking for and what I was always trying to display in everything that I did with my actions, right? That progress, not perfection, but the progress continually, day after day, that I observed in nature. The way that, you know, the most thin tree can survive in a thunderstorm and still blossom and bloom and continue. And you see grass growing out of the concrete despite our most strident attempts to destroy it, right? I knew that there's this thing out there that I wanted. Mm-hmm. And I knew that I wanted to imitate it. I wanted it to be with me. And thankfully, it always was. So when I came to accept it, right, I came to surrender to it. And I said very simply to myself, alone in a room by myself, on my knees, having given up everything, finally, right, on my quest for this holy mountain, save me, you know, please. I can't do it alone. I felt something, you know, and it's different for everybody. Right? We have these highly conceptualized ideas of God and especially religion. And there's a lot of really terrible people out there that have pursued destruction in the name of love and truth and God, that have tarnished the name of spirituality. And, you know, religion will get you to hell, but spirituality will take you out of it. And I truly believe that.
So I know me, like you said, you asked your higher power to save you. I know my coming into the program and admitting that I didn't have control, I asked for help. I was like, just please help me, because I knew at this point I couldn't help myself. Because if I could have put down the drink a long time ago. So you talked about like kind of all the higher powers being like a never-ending love. And I've known you for going on 3 months now, and you are an incredibly loving, caring, passionate individual. Were you like that in your days of addiction? Or did you becoming who you are throughout the program?
That's another good point. And as I kind of alluded to earlier, I made the attempt to be like that. I tried to be kind. You know, I organized, I ran fundraisers, rallies, you know, signed petitions, created petitions, went knocking on doors, right? I picked up litter. I did things in my life that I wanted other people to do. You know, I followed the popular axiom, do unto others as you would have them do unto yourself, because I think that's like the golden rule, right? But in trying to be something good, there's the possibility of failure. And I found more often than not, because I am this kind of like extremely flawed individual with all these character defects and, you know, these mental health issues and all these struggles in my art and my creativity and my pursuit of my happiness, that more often than not I would fail. And in my failure, it would be spectacular, right? And the destruction that was wrought from it was extreme and would bring down everything around me. What I've noticed now is that I do things. I am kind. And I know that because you tell me that, right? So that's what that means to me. And I make my life now about my actions rather than my thoughts, because that's how I affect the world around me.
So I know that the program in itself is a very emotional roller coaster.
Absolutely.
There's many, especially in your first 90 days when it's the dry time, essentially, there's plenty of ups, downs, tears, and questioning yourself and what you're doing in the program. So I hear the term emotional sobriety fairly consistently being used. What does emotional sobriety mean to you?
So we live in an extremely complex world, right? And we become highly evolved, not only physically, but culturally and intellectually as well. And that also applies to our emotional state. You know, kids today know what it means when you're triggered. They know what it means, what emotional sobriety, emotional labor means. Like we're starting to kind of understand things that you only got in the shrink's office before, right? The only things that were available to people with an advanced education. And in my life, I face all kinds of things, right, that all stem from fear. I have anxiety, you know, I have ADHD, I have a problem with manic depression, right? I have these suicidal tendencies. How do I deal with that, right? In my everyday life? Well, you know, it used to be just meditation. It used to be, you know, exercise. It used to be the expression of my art, right? It's how I released all this energy that I accrued every day, you know. And these things all work, but what they can be missing is this connection to your higher power, right? Because that's what actually relieves all the burden, because it's an infinite power that you can always call on. Myself, I will run out of energy. Eventually, I can't deal with everything in my life. And it becomes this roller coaster where I'm up and down, and one day I'm this person and the other day I'm that, because I can't maintain any stability of self. No matter how hard I tried, no matter how many therapists I went to, no matter, you know, how much shadow work I did, right? There was always something missing. And maintaining that emotional sobriety now, I realize, is this very corresponding thing to my physical sobriety. If I just don't take a drink, I won't get drunk.
It's very true.
If I don't think, I won't get caught in my thoughts, right? If I'm not resentful, then I'm not resentful. Life has become so much simpler. And by becoming simpler, all of the complex things that I want to do are now achievable, because they themselves are simple. It's their expression that becomes complex to the outside world, right? It's in this conjunction of the opposite that I find all of my freedom, and I achieve that serenity and that peace and that clarity that I've always desired. And it's created for me a space, a safe space, to make my art less selfish, right? When I do things now, I feel satisfied with them. I'm not constantly degrading myself or finding avenues to deceive myself, because I can clearly see what is going on around me. And we like to say we ended up in this state where we could no longer tell the truth from falsity. And that was where I was. I didn't know what was real anymore, because I had created such a deceptive house of cards, and the illusion was too much for me. Right now, I'm just rock solid. And I was only able to do that so quickly and in such short a time, not only because I knew the basics of the program from years of coming in and out, but because I gave it my all. And I did exactly what was told to me, even when I didn't want to. And that occurred quite frequently, you know, where I would not want to do what I was told, and I would have my doubts and my insecurities and my objections. But when I gave everything, that's when I got everything, right? That's the trick, that's the secret, that's the magic of the program.
Yeah, I know we talked about the fears and resentments. I think that we mentally exhaust ourselves through fearing and resenting throughout our everyday life. We create, like you said, art, music, all these things that we think that's going to like help our mental health, help with these things. And in turn, we exhaust ourselves even doing that because we're doing that so much. And because we have these fears, it's, the person's probably not going to like my art, not going to like my music. So we start judging ourselves. And because now the thing that was supposed to be the escape is now something else that even causes more fear, I think that's why we go and use.
Oh,
because
absolutely.
that's right there, something that we can drug or drink and it fully let go of everything because we're in an altered state of mind.
Absolutely. I mean, what else would I do but what I knew? And what I knew was how to get completely fucked up. You know, that was my medication that I prescribed myself, right? And in any time of stress or trouble, that's what I would always return to because I knew it worked, right? And it would work until it didn't. And it always would come to a point where it just didn't work anymore. And I mean that physically, and I mean that mentally, and I mean that spiritually. It eventually exhausted myself of everything till I just had nothing in life, because this isn't a life that you can live like that. You know, we've seen everybody that's passed. You know, I have 35 people from my graduating class in high school that are all dead from overdoses. You look at the celebrity world, you see it everywhere. You look at your family, you have an addict or an alcoholic in there, or someone that suffered because of it. And the stigma of mental health today is that it's some kind of like touchy topic we can't talk about. Absolutely not. This is something that we must address so that we can continually progress, not only in our country, our world, our universe, our family, but our personal self. And we do that ourselves by being that beacon of light for everybody around us and living our life to the fullest. And living my life to the fullest is what I get to do today. I get to do that.
Yeah, because I think if people that suffer from mental health are able to talk about it and feel comfortable talking about it, they won't have to hide behind the bottle, behind the needle. So I think if we are able to talk about it, I think the root of addiction would be a little bit less, because they won't need that escape because they'll be able to ask for the assistance before it gets to that point.
Absolutely. You know, I'm queer, right? I think this podcast is such a beautiful, beautiful endeavor, and I can't congratulate you enough on all the work you've done with it.
Thank you.
In my life, right, my identity has always been central to the core of who I am, and that sounds obvious, but a lot of people simply follow the roles they've been given. And in my constant quest to discover myself and explore the boundaries of what is possible, you know, I've run into these continual roadblocks and this oppressive bigotry and this behavior from other people that's full of fear and anger and hatred, right, that has made me suffer. And the inability to talk about that only makes me suffer more. And so we have smaller and smaller groups, but as things like this come about and we're able to talk about that and reach more and more people, and more people out there say, oh my goodness, there's someone else like me.
And don't think that just because we're sober, we don't have resentments on a daily basis.
No, not at all.
But it's the fact of the moment these resentments present themselves, we can immediately work through them.
I have a toolkit now, right? Like I have all these tools that I'm able to use in certain situations. I know when I get a resentment, I can kind of do this cognitive behavioral therapy on it where I identify it, you know, I'm honest about it, and then I give it up. And by visualizing that in my mind and identifying it inside myself and seeing the truth about the situation, I'm able to alter my behavior because I've altered my thinking and my feeling, right? There's nothing more useful than that in life. These are things that, you know, we would be blessed to learn in kindergarten, but for some reason we don't learn them, but, you know, the shady building on the corner of that street you never go to in whatever town, you know, you don't want to be in. And this is the room where I found more loving and interesting people that can also party their butts off, sober or not, right? Like, this whole thing that we're doing here is a miracle in itself, and it's something that I'll include in my life forever because it's just fun. You know, it's just fun. I will always be flawed. I will always be fucked.
Yeah.
That's my life.
Well, I know when I stepped into the room the first night, I was so happy to see you here. Another queer individual.
Holler.
And let me tell you guys, they wear a pearl necklace all the damn time, and I absolutely love it. So it's coming to let you guys know that these rooms are not strictly for straight people. You don't have to find a gay group to find yourself comfortable, because you will find acceptance whether I identify as gay, Andy identifies as queer. You will find acceptance in these groups.
Oh my God, right? Like, I know I am, and I know you are. We are these walking safe spaces, right? Wherever we go, we bring that space with us, and we create a space for other people to feel safe in. And when we get together, that space becomes even bigger, right? If anybody tells you this is a program for straight white men, you know that they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing, and frankly, they can get the hell out. Like, that has nothing to do with achieving what you want in life. This program is about a unity of purpose and about teaching you tools that are frankly necessary in the world today in order to almost do anything. You know, like as Holden said earlier, I'm still an extremely flawed individual. I build my resentments. I have my issues and I have my problems. I simply deal with them as they come now. And the freedom that gives me is immense to do anything that I want to do in my life. And you can ask them, you write letters or emails. We have so much freaking fun. You know, I still party. I still go out, right? I have a motorcycle that I love to ride. I sit in front of my piano and play my heart out, you know? Like, everything that I do in my life is more joyful, including sex. You know, like, this is not a program that is some puritanical, conventional, like, old school type thing, you know, like, at all. I can't express that enough. And the more queer people involved in it, I say, come on board, you know, like, we're waiting, we're here for you. We are here for you.
I know that sex, at least nowadays, when we wake up and there's somebody in bed next to us, we know their name.
Yeah, thank God. Didn't always.
Yeah, because I mean, my sexual endeavors, especially in step 4, were a little cray-cray.
You know, we all have that. That's just part of the life we live today in the world we live today. It's a confusing world. It's a confounding reality that we find ourselves in. And if anything that can help us, you know, is something that you should be looking for. You know, you'll find it here.
Mm-hmm, exactly. I think anything you're looking for when it comes to assistance in getting sober, you will find within these rooms. You just have to drop the prejudice that you have against finding a higher power. Because even though I had that prejudice stepping in, nowadays, when fear starts hitting, resentment starts hitting, anger towards other individuals, whether it's at work or my personal life, instead of like popping off on these hoes, you just can take a fucking pause and just say a quick prayer, even if it's like 2 sentences. And for me, after I say the prayer, I take like one deep inhale and exhale, and it kind of exhales that anger that I'm holding against that individual.
Absolutely. I mean, Madonna said it. You know, I live my life like a prayer. You know, these things I learned. This program is about you. This program is about getting what you want. This program is about doing your will and completion, and living a life of love, like, and truth. And those are things you can't buy. You have to find them. And pain, unfortunately, right, or fortunately, is the greatest teacher of wisdom. So if you found yourself here, or you're thinking of finding yourself here, you know, like, God, it's the best place you can be. There's no doubt in my mind that my life today is infinitely more full of possibilities and joy, right? Not just happiness, but this true vibrational wavelength of joy that I get to share with other people, and I get to help other people today, which is what I always wanted to do, however I was doing it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, service to others is one of the main things. Being service to others helps you stay sober. So let me ask, how are your relationships, now that you've gone sober, I'm not just talking about your sexual relationships, but your relationships with your friends, your families. How do those relationships differ now than they did when you're in your addiction?
Well, yeah, I had all these flaws, right? Like, I was an extremely selfish, self-centered person because I thought everybody, was doing everything to me. I thought that, all these things were directed at me. I could only think about what people thought about me. It was very difficult to focus on anything ever. And that affected all of my relationships. They would be good for a period of time, and then they would be bad for a period of time. All my relationships are good today because it's not just about me, right? It's about everybody else. I just do things today. I don't spend my time thinking about what's in your head because, frankly, it's none of my business, right? I can't change it if I wanted to, right? I can change myself. And because I can change myself, everything around me changes. It's this opposite thing, right? That's the magic thing that we're talking about. That's the secret that we're looking for, is that today, everything in my life is different. It is radically, radically changed because I've accepted these very simple facts about the way the universe works. And I just can't express how much fun and joy I get to live today because of that.
Mm-hmm. So before we end, I want to go back to at the beginning. You said that you relapsed. So what would you tell somebody that had, because I haven't had an experience with relapse. Mm-hmm. So what would you tell that person that has relapse and is still in their addiction, kind of scared to come back because they relapsed?
Remember, it's about you, okay? Keep going. Always keep taking steps forward, okay? Fear will always bind you and hinder you. Anything that you're scared of, right? Like, you're scared to come into this room and let people see you. You're scared to do anything. I was terrified of taking a step forward, terrified of taking a step backward, and terrified to be where I was at. The second I moved forward, right? Like, fear is this 10,000-foot wave, right? But it's only an inch thick, and you just have to take one step forward through it. And you just keep doing that. And every single thing that comes at you, whether it's conflict or whether it's something you enjoy, you just move through it, whatever it is. And you will find relief on the other side, especially if you're here, because no one in this room ever said, don't come back. No one ever expressed anything negative about my sexuality or my identity or who I am, how I look, or anything like that. I was welcomed in arms of camaraderie and love and respect. And, I've learned to love and find a lot of people in this program that now are part of my daily life that I will take into the rest of, my endeavors forever, because this room is just that cool, right?
Alrighty, so last question, of course, I know that you identify as queer, is that correct?
That's true, I do.
All right, so what would you tell the queer person that's struggling with addiction right now?
God, if it's hard to be fucked up in this world, then it's really hard to be queer and fucked up. The oppression and the bigotry that runs rampant through everything in our society is so immense that it can feel like you're being crushed all the time. I want you to know that there is someone out there that loves you, even if it's only me, or even if it's only Holden. I guarantee you that we do, right? You can always reach out. You can always ask for help, and I guarantee you that we'll be there. Keep going forward. Know that you're loved, and know that on the other side, right, when you get to it, you will lead a completely different life, and you'll still be yourself. That was so important to me, is remaining who I was and not losing anything like of myself. And I just gained more and more and more.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Andy, for joining me today.
You're welcome.
Thank you again for listening to today's episode. Hit that follow button to be notified about new episodes every week. If you'd like to reach out to us, you can find us on Instagram at The Sober Unicorn Podcast or on our website at thesoberunicornpodcast.com. There you will find our episodes as well as our very own sober-owned shop featuring products from small businesses that are sober-owned. And remember, everyone, don't be normal, be a unicorn, but better yet, be a sober unicorn.